Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be with you. Pastor Maggie, thank you for your leadership and joining us today. And to our hosts here at the United Church of Christ, thank you for your hospitality. Let me say, as a Jewish man, as a gay man, I always feel very welcome and at home at the United Church of Christ. And thank you for your leadership on behalf of fighting for the dignity of all people. Randy and I first crossed paths about 25 years ago. I was involved with the Human Rights Campaign, and his boss, Chuck Holmes, was one of our major donors and also a fellow board member. Randy worked for Chuck in those years. Chuck, of course, whose name is on the front of the LGBT Community Center, thanks to his extraordinary philanthropy, and made his not inconsiderable fortune in, I guess we call it adult male entertainment. Randy, in the capacity in which I first knew him, was the perfect assistant. He managed Chuck's very busy life. He managed his donations, he managed his schedule, he managed his traveling, he managed his personal life. He did everything for him. And my entree to Chuck, or any kind of communications I needed, of course, all went through Randy, who was Chuck's gatekeeper. I share this with you only because a few years later, when he was able to follow his own passion, which was to fight for and work for the dignity, the respect, and the validation, the health and well-being of people living with HIV and AIDS. It was his singular focus. And to see him spread his wings and to really be able to engage in that world was so very exciting and thrilling for me as a friend. And you've heard all the counting, listing of his involvements with the CARE Coalition and the Planning Council, National Working Positive Coalition, also engaging in the invitation of Mayor Newsom, the mayor's Hepatitis C task force, bringing that issue out of the closet as well. And then subsequently, of course, being recognized by the White House just this past summer for all of his many accomplishments. Randy once wrote that, "I hope that by knowing my life, others will see that AIDS is by far a disease that cannot be shelved. It deserves to be front and center, and the needs of older people living with HIV must be addressed." It was through Randy that I came to learn that by next year, 50% of all those living with HIV and AIDS here in San Francisco will be over the age of 50. This is a very new phenomenon. And Randy, again, on the crest of that wave, bringing attention to the fact that those who have been living with HIV and AIDS for now 10, 20, 30 years or more, and are now approaching their senior years, have different health issues, additional health issues. In fact, the very cancer that he contracted was as a result of all of the drugs he had taken for so many years, which sustained his life. Randy was a very wise man. And I say that because he knew so very well that through all of his health struggles, he was sustained, figuratively and literally, by the love of his husband Lee, by the love and devotion of his sister Linda, his family and friends, his beloved Darwin, who was there not just by his bedside, but in his bed all of those many months when he was fighting for his life. And the kind of connection that is made with another living being in those challenging times. And he counted those blessings every day. And his effort and desire to get back to work, he knew his work was life-preserving for him. And he felt it was such an honor to be able to return to Shanti as an employee in the last year of his life, after having, of course, started there as a volunteer decades earlier, the very place where Lee and Randy met and fell in love. I would say that a match made in Shanti is not unlike a match made in heaven. It's for real. And so he was a very wise man. He was also a very humble man. Self-acknowledgement. He learned unconditional love from a dog. And that love mirrored the love he had for Lee. It was the same love that he was receiving from Lee. And what a blessing that was for them. But again, he became very humble. Randy was never one, we all knew that so well, to run to the front of the stage and grab a microphone. He felt he was most effective, oftentimes behind the scenes. Those of us who are out front in public positions, we benefit from the hard work and the digging deep into the public policy. Public policy creators like Randy create and then bring to the lawmakers to be able to put into statute. So I was always appreciative of that. And then he was also very devoted, a man of devotion. Devoted to Lee, to Linda, to his community, to San Francisco, and to the environment of California. Again, always singularly focused on what more can be done for those living with HIV and AIDS. You couldn't budge him off that mark. Very devotional human being. I was so thrilled and honored when Lee and Randy asked if I would officiate at their marriage ceremony. And we decided to do it at City Hall, having had some history and experience of married couples at City Hall. Always a very indescribably joyful occasion. I asked them if they might like to be married in the board chambers, which is probably one of the most architecturally astounding and significant interior spaces anywhere to be found. And so we all piled in, had an entourage of about 100, and it was there that they took their vows. And given that the wedding date was their 20th anniversary, it had special meaning. It just continues to remind me that there was nothing cavalier about Randy, or for that matter about Lee either. That's not to say there wasn't spontaneity in life. You've already heard about the joy and spontaneity of their life, but everything with purpose and with thought. So yes, the law is now allowing them to be married. Let's do it on our 20th anniversary. Special meaning to that date. And to stand before two people who have already been together for 20 years, and to ask them, do they promise to love, honor, to comfort and keep, in good times and bad, better for worse, richer for poorer, in good health. Something special about that, because clearly these were two men who already knew what that experience was about. Also just want to touch on Randy's significant involvement with Pets Are Wonderful support. You already know he was obsessed with his love for dogs, and of course his love for Darwin. But he spent about 3 years on the board of directors of PAWS, and this all came together just yesterday, as many of us were at the ribbon cutting for PAWS's new home on 23rd Street in Mission, having bounced around from one rental space to another and seeing their rents ever escalating. PAWS Executive Director John Liff got in his mind to find a piece of property, purchase it, renovate it, and make it their home once and for all. Not only did they accomplish that, about a $2 million capital campaign, but I'm now told that their current mortgage is half of what their previous rent had been. So this is a very talented executive director, but he told me yesterday that John credits Randy with his being hired as executive director, as a board member at that time, leading the charge to ensure the board hired John Litt. And given that it was John's dream and then manifestation to construct and obtain this new home for Paws. Clearly, if it weren't for Randy, we wouldn't have been cutting that red ribbon yesterday. So, I had conversations with Lee. I was very fortunate to be home the days right before Thanksgiving from Sacramento. And I knew Randy had just gone to the hospital. I was able to connect with Lee, and we had a wonderful day together. I think it was the Tuesday before that Thanksgiving Thursday. Randy was not conscious at the time, but we sat at his bedside. We had the opportunity to grab some sandwiches, share some hours together, recounting stories, learning more about Lee and Randy's history together, and recounting travels and such. And in that very delicate and precious period of time, with a certain understanding of what was immediately up ahead, but not wanting to let go quite yet, because of course he was still with us. We talked about how in the Jewish tradition, and I know this from having lost my partner 20 years ago, that for an observant traditional Jew, there is the commandment to say certain prayers for the deceased. This would be specifically for a spouse, surviving sibling, or surviving parent. To say these prayers and to say them every morning and every evening, specifically for 52 weeks, not a day more. And the genius of this is that it acknowledges that the phenomenon of mourning someone that close is a four-season process. And you have to go through every holiday, every change of season, every birthday, every anniversary, and you do it all in one complete cycle. And I remember as I was in the midst of mourning Doug, you could have stopped me in the street any week of that year, and I would have told you 13, 21, 32, I just, like a clock, I was counting down. Obsessively on paper, marking off days, but just in my interior clock, knowing. And so I just want us all to remember that as Lee and Linda proceed through that year of mourning, that we be sensitive to it, and we offer special support and love and friendship and encouragement, because we do get through it. And again, not a day more than 52 weeks, because the commandment also is to choose life. And that's what we do. As I close, I just want to remember a line that I was asked to read at Doug's Memorial Mass from the Book of Wisdom, that the souls of the righteous are in the hand of God, and no torment shall ever touch them. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'achiyanu v'kiyimanu v'hibiyanu lazman hazeh. Blessed are you, Creator of the universe, who has given us life and sustained us, who brought us to this time of blessing.